4:30, 4:45-ish. I don't want to take it all the way to 5. So I'll try to cut off some questions. If you want to stay, I'll be here. You're welcome to hang out and talk through some of those things. Is that fair? Okay. All right. So what I want you guys to do first, I wrote up on this board, WIFM. Anyone know what WIFM is?
What's in it for me?
Sir, you know what's in it for you, man? All right. So what I want you to do is what's in it for me. It's not FM, radio, system. Write down on a sticky what you hope to get out of this. And what that does for me, what's in it for me specifically, is it kind of gives me an idea. Well, I'll try to hit some of these points that you're hoping to get. Okay? But just throw them up on that when you get done. You know, get the blood moving, walk over here, put it up on the wall, and I'll look at it periodically and see if we're getting some of these. Okay? Well, thank you. You're here for a reason.
Did you say put it up there?
Yeah. I can't read it if it's. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is what's most important? What's the most important thing you want to know? I want to know how to do, or how do we deal with, what if we could. It's fine. There's no wrong answer. Because, again, it's what's in it for me, and you. Doesn't matter what that says. You have some, maybe a different agenda. And that's okay. Fair enough. All right, everybody get an opportunity to throw one or two. One student up. Okay. How many of you are practicing on the Agile team today? How many of you are practicing on the Agile team today? Okay. All right, there's only a few, which is awesome. I was talking to this table here. I'll remind you guys, please, to provide feedback. We used the feedback of last year to build this content and to build this summer camp. We modified last year's based on that feedback, and here we are. So that was a shameless plug. Why was I going there? There was a reason.
Where do you provide feedback?
Oh, thank you for asking. So one is the wall, but what's also really good is if you go to the Agile Den, go to the events, Agile Camp 2016, and then go to the feedback. There's a form that you can fill out. Ask a few questions. That feedback, we got a lot of great feedback, some constructive feedback from the sessions we did in Lincoln. All good. 98% of it verbal. Okay. I don't know about you guys, but me personally, I forget very quickly. Got a lot going on, thinking about the next thing sometimes. So that helps us kind of see some trends across the organization. So do provide that feedback. Where I was going with it is that not every one of us is doing working on Agile teams. We expanded it based on the feedback and based on some of the energy up beyond NDS, and expanded the camp to having a session out in Lincoln as well as here. And in Lincoln, we spent maybe half, maybe 30% of the folks were on the business side, so they weren't necessarily on that team, but they were interested in learning about what Agile is, because every one of us within the organization, or perhaps touching a team that is working in Agile ways, we need to understand that. Okay. All right. So what is Agile? What does it mean to be Agile? What does it mean to be doing Agile? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So what does it mean? This, again, just a refresher, this is where it becomes more fun, is when you participate.
Well, I can guess.
Okay. Awesome.
What was that?
To be nimble and to
Thank you for your courage.
Awesome.
All right. What does it mean to be agile? Doing it?
Flexible.
Flexible? In what way?
With,
Okay.
in other words, if you see that something's going to happen, you can adjust it.
Okay. Does flexibility mean, well, we can just get done when we get done? Okay, good.
So try with what?
Because I like the term flexibility, and it really is about being nimble and making those quick adjustments in real time, right?
Adapting,
Yep.
adapting as things change.
Okay. Adapting as things change. It's we, not I. We, not I. I like that. What do you mean by that? I think I like
Well, we have to take, we have to come to a decision and make mistakes together and work together.
Common goal.
I think it more is a methodology.
What's that?
I think it more of a methodology for how you approach work.
Okay.
Part of
Breaking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can paper, rock, scissors.
Can we do that? I'd like to do that. So just take a second. You're part of owner. You own. There's value in owning a part of the process.
See, all this time I thought it was about taking a very large deliverable, breaking it into smaller, more manageable services to stay on track and provide reasonable data instead of what we thought we needed 9 months ago.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. I mean, it really is going about it, incrementally. That's what you're driving at. And all agile methodologies and frameworks speak to that concept. And the whole, I talked about it earlier about Eric Ries, build, measure, learn, is get to that wrong product, fail fast, or however you want to term it. Get to that point so that you can make a pivot or keep going down the path because you're on the right track. And if I do that, 10-month project, and then I go, what we did, awesome. Not really what I wanted, but cool. Seems like a lot of work.
Making adjustments as knowledge increases.
Oh, awesome. As knowledge increases, right? And how do you get that knowledge? How do you increase that knowledge?
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Take risks, collaborate.
What was that?
Take risks.
Oh, I thought you said, hey, Chris. I'm like, Nicole has a little bit of Tourette's. It's okay. Take risks.
And learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, all these things are feedback. They're all about that feedback. So here's, I got some input. This is the stuff we want. I deliver something, small increments. I'm going to build a whole thing because I want to make sure that we heard the right thing and we're on the same page. Here's a small increment. What do you think? Yes, on the right path, keep going. Or no, let's make a small adjustment. Go into risks. You know what? I don't know how that's going to work, but let's prototype something. Because I'm never going to get there if we just sit here and talk about it for months, right? So take those risks, make those decisions very quickly, prove it out. Okay? So all Agile methodologies are based on empirical process control. We do that through transparency, inspection, and adaptation. You hear that all the time, inspect and adapt. Inspect and adapt. So build, measure, learn, same type of thing. Build it, get some feedback, make some adaptations based on the feedback, based on what you've learned, right? So use the data, that feedback, to make those incremental changes. So again, going back to, if I take a traditional project, and let's just use 12 months, 12-month project, you did all the elicitation up front, you did the design work, and then you did the coding and testing, and then you deliver it and say, ta-da! I said 12 months. I spend the next 3 months kind of iterating through that and making the adjustments that we need. Sometimes they're very difficult because the work that we did is so intertwined. So Agile flips that and says, let's build a little bit, get feedback. Are we on the right track or not? So that empirical data, real feedback, make those adjustments, make a little pivot to the left, to the right, or keep going down the same path. Make sense? Same with, how many of you use a metric called velocity? Right, so you use average velocity, and it helps you to measure the work that you're doing. It's just a scale, okay? It's a number. Based on that number, we either hit it or we don't. That's empirical data. That data should tell us which way to go, right? So in other words, if I commit to 50 units of work, whatever those units are, it could be story points, it could be 50 PBIs, whatever. But 50 units, and I delivered 30, that's telling me something, right? It's telling me something. It should be telling me something. Maybe something happened that caused that to occur. So maybe I'll still predict 50. Or maybe I'll say, let's predict 30. And then the next sprint I hit 40. Ooh, I'm kind of dialing it in a little bit, right? So using the empirical data to make an adjustment somewhere. Does that make sense? Okay. Agile's also based on the pull principle. We talked about that in one of the other sessions. So we talked about push versus pull. Right? Pull, the team is empowered to say, here's what we can do. Or we can do one more. That's it. That's the line. Right? And then there's a lot of level of trust that goes along with that on the receiving end. Make sense? But that pull system, as a team, we can do this. Let's do a little bit more, team. I think we can. As opposed to traditional leadership going, here's everything we need, and we need it done by next week. Okay? Right? That's a push system versus pull.
I sidetracked you for a second. I don't know.
I sidetracked just fine on my own.
You used some acronyms today.
Oh, okay.
Those of us that are not part of this world, like PBI, don't know what that is.
Okay.
COPS, don't know what that is.
What was the other one?
COPS.
Okay.
Think of others.
And I apologize, but thank you for rating. So COP is community practice. It's a social learning event. What was the other one? PDI, product backlog item. So TFS, called PDIs, just work items. What was the other one? I said velocity, the story points. These are just numbers that measurements.
Those are the two.
Okay. As they come out, stop me. I try to throw something at me, that's fine too. I'm very all right. So, pull principle, talked about that. Agile team model. If you look at a traditional team model, you know, we talk about this in our examples oftentimes. I don't know why, but we always say 9 months. What's significant about that? But you know, a longer cycle time for each project, they're concurrent, which means a lot of work in progress. That's what WIP is. People share between projects oftentimes. How well does that work? Sharing team members across multiple projects. Because the dilemma you put on that individual, I mean, on paper it makes sense. Spend 20 hours a week here, 20 hours a week here. Simple. Right?
You think math is good?
Right. So that makes sense on paper, but in reality you go, well, I just want to spend a little more time to get this done. Right? Just a little more, I'm almost done. And you end up spending 40 hours on this team and another 20 over here. And then the next time you go, I'll spend more time here, kind of make up the time. And then everybody loses, right? Especially the individual that's being shared. You start to burn out. Other teams saying, hey, wait a second, I needed this from you, and you haven't gotten it. Well, I've been busy on this other project. That's what we hear oftentimes. So we want to limit, so that's what traditional projects oftentimes do. And then as projects end, really move on to another project team. And so all those great things that were happening, we finally figured out how to work with each other. We finally learned how to communicate. We finally understood our strengths and weaknesses. And then we're done. Check you later. Then go over here, hey, nice to meet you. I don't even know what you do, right? And so we do that process all over again. So it's kind of that locomotive. Takes a while to get moving, but it's all about the team dynamics. And I'll go into another model. It's a 4-quadrant thing. Duh. But another model is it's about team dynamics and maturation.
Chris,
Yes.
another thing that I think happens with traditional is that when that project ends, all the knowledge that was learned stops right there, doesn't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
When you moved on from this project to that project, you didn't take any of that knowledge with you.
That's a great point.
Totally focused on whatever they're doing.
Yeah, so somebody had mentioned the gained knowledge of the team earlier, I forget. Somebody said that, maybe so. The gained knowledge of the team over time, that's the point exactly with an Agile team, is that they stay together and they continue to build their knowledge and their depth of knowledge on a given product that they're working on. And their skills start to broaden as well. Here you blow it up and take all that knowledge and go over here, and maybe it applies, maybe it doesn't. An Agile team model is focused more on shorter cycle times, right? Reduced WIP, which provides more focus. So take, even if I'm working on multiple projects at the same time, I mean, if somebody loses, this helps me focus and get that one done, move on to the next one type of thing. Fewer people share between projects. The team, mostly speaking, is stable over time, right? So leveraging that gained knowledge. So those are the kind of the team model, an Agile team model that might be different from traditional. Does that make sense? So again, the biggest thing for me is, these are kind of boiling it down, but providing focus, shorter cycle time, team members consistent over time, leveraging the knowledge. So Agile, Aaron was saying earlier that Agile is in response to the question, is a set of values and principles. And where that came from was the Agile Manifesto. Just to give you a little history, if you haven't heard it, the manifesto, if you look at some of the other, like Scrum, for example, predated the manifesto. Okay? So Scrum was a thing before Agile was a term. With me? There's other Agile methodologies like DSDM, XP, Extreme Programming, you've heard of that. Those predated Agile. Agile Manifesto was a group of guys that were members or experts in those given iterative processes, like Scrum, like DSDM, like XP. They got together in Park City, Sun Valley, somewhere in Utah, in the mountains, pretty place, I think. Got together and said, we're all doing a lot of the same type of stuff. We have different processes, we have different rules and how we approach the work. But at the end of the day, we believe in the same things. And so they got together and said, let's come up with a manifesto. They coined the term Agile Manifesto. And if you want to read in detail about it, the history behind it, it's agilemanifesto.org. Okay? You can read all about it, who signed the Agile Manifesto. It was like a Declaration of Independence type of thing, as some of these guys viewed it. But they're all the signers of it are there. Many of them speak on the circuit. They're great speakers. But one of the things I want to point out, it's a set of values and a set of principles. Okay? That's all the manifesto is. It doesn't tell you how to do your work. Values and principles are not how you do your work. It's a belief system, to use the phrase that Aaron would use. Okay? It's a belief system. So what they stated is that if you look at this column versus this column, so you value the ones on the left over the ones on the right. Lots of myths have been derived out of the statement that I just made. Doesn't mean we don't do the things on the right. Just means push come to shove, I value this over that. Okay? So for example, one of the myths that you get out of, I believe, from the Agile Manifesto is that an Agile we don't do any documentation. That's not what the manifesto says. The manifesto says we value working software over comprehensive documentation. Is documentation valuable? Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So it doesn't mean we don't do it, says the person from risk management. But, you know, with everything we do, whether I'm putting my fingers to the keyboard to write code, or whether I'm putting my fingers to the keyboard to write a document, what's the value of what I'm doing, right? If I'm delivering software to a new user group, building a whole new application, and I deliver it without any user guides, probably not a good thing. So documentation is important in that scenario. What are some other? Responding to change over following a plan. What myth do you think derives out of that value statement? Yeah, we don't plan anything in Agile. We're Agile. No planning required. What? Bull. Right? We do a lot of planning, in fact, in Agile. If you are on a Scrum team and you know, you understand the practices and activities with Scrum, when you start a sprint, the very first activity is planning for them. You plan your work. Okay? And you do other types of planning, like release planning, which is a little bit broader than a sprint plan. Or you road mapping, which is a broader plan than a release plan. Okay? So having that big picture. And then the key with all of this is doing it iteratively, modifying it as necessary, as things change. Okay? So values and principles, right? Here are the 4 values. So I'm not going to go, there's 12 principles in agilemanifesto.org, you can hit all of them. But some of the highlights, the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Not from their bosses, from teams. Teams that have come together and sat at the same table and said, here's how we should approach this work. They have a vested interest in delivering a great product.
Can I just ask something quick? I just want to make sure self-organizing doesn't mean you just go off and you just do whatever you're going to do, right, and make it all up. There's still the boundary, the framework that we're working within, right? But you guys, the team decides how we work within that framework. It goes to some of the stuff that's come up over, Chris just talked about the values. Self-organization has
Yeah, that's
become a bad word in my vocabulary.
early in our transformation, we had teams that said, well, we're doing Scrum, but we don't want to do retrospective every sprint. But we want to do Scrum. We like Scrum. I just don't want to do retrospective. And we decided that as a team because we're self-organizing, right? So that's the point. That's an example of how teams have kind of grossly misused the term self-organizing. So if you employ Scrum, do Scrum. Do what it prescribes. Get really darn good at it. And then when you're an expert at it, Aaron and I will say this over and over and over. When you're an expert, try some experiments. Try something different. See if that makes you even that much better. Heck, maybe we'll invent our own framework or process, right? But let's get really good at Scrum, if that's what we're doing. Don't modify it. That doesn't make you self-organized. Build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. What does it mean to give them the environment they need?
Any questions you have, or handoffs from the developers, the testers, things like that maybe?
Could be.
Also the tools that we need to get ready.
Whatever's required, right? Could be tools, could be physical environment. Think of our organization where we're distributed. We have folks in Lincoln, folks folks in Boise, folks somewhere else, you know, but we've got, Minnesota, anywhere else. Sometimes our collaboration tools aren't great to work with our folks in other offices. So maybe the environment isn't set up for success there. That could be an example. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. And at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So whether you're doing Scrum, whether you're doing Kanban, whether you're doing XP, ESD, any of these other Agile frameworks or methodologies, they'll talk about all of these things, right? So hence, the Agile Manifesto, all these folks came together from different methods of working and said, what do we all believe in collectively? And found out that it's a set of values and principles that they believe in. And all Agile frameworks, methodologies are based on these 12. I know there's 4 I can count, but all the 12 principles and 4 values. Okay? And as teams, when Aaron and I work with teams and we coach teams, and they're asking to do something, what if we tried this? Your go-to position should always be, does it meet these values and principles? Right? If not, we're probably not being agile. And the first question, if I'm doing Scrum, is does this work within the Scrum framework? The second question is, does it fit here? Make sense? So this is kind of like a foundational belief system. So I'm going to focus the next few slides on Scrum. We're not going to hit Kanban. Thursday, we have we play a game that's called Get Kanban. We can talk about it in the open space if you want to know more. But the majority of our organization is employing Scrum, so we're going to focus on that. But again, the reason I make that note is there are other Agile frameworks or methods that we can employ. So Scrum, this little green arrow kind of depicts, it's just a cyclical thing. We're doing things iteratively, right? We start with some sprint planning. We can do a daily Scrum. There's some backlog grooming or refinement you might hear. There's a sprint review. I want to scratch the word demo. Lots of teams call it demo. Why might I make that distinction between a review versus a demo?
Maybe not always a product to demo.
What's that?
Maybe not always a product to demo.
Maybe.
Maybe it's something.
Demo could imply that it's a complete finished product, or
Yeah, I can see all of those. Where I was heading was more, a demo was more one-sided. I'm going to show you what I did. Thank you, good night, right? Review is, let's sit down at the table together, figuratively and figuratively, right? And let's discuss what we delivered in this product increment and get some feedback. So you'll hear teams say demo. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just want to make that distinction. The key point in that sprint review is the feedback. If you're not getting any feedback, then it's a demo. But it's important to get the feedback from your customer, right? Because at the end of the day, that's why we do our work. It's for our customer. We deliver it to someone, regardless of what you do in the organization. You could be on a finance team. We deliver financial reports to someone, right? So having that interaction, saying, here's what I built, does this meet your needs? Getting that feedback. And then we got some great little pictures of folks. So what this picture shows us is not only the activities, but also the artifacts, like product backlog. There is a sprint backlog. There's a potential shippable product increment. And then the folks, this kind of depicts on who's at the table for these, and we'll go through each of these. And the one that I missed as far as activities, that's sprint retrospective. That's my favorite event in a Scrum framework. And the reason is that's where teams really hone in on what they're doing great and what they're not so great at and need improvement. And if teams are at a good spot and they're open and honest with one another, really good things happen out of those retrospectives. There's lots of conflict, and if you came to the conflict session, what do you think happens oftentimes in those retrospectives? Might be blaming. There might be a lot of stonewalling. There's a lot of this going on. Whatever. Let me just do my job. can't get back to my job at work, right? I've heard that, right? It's because we're not being honest and open with one another. But that's a powerful, powerful activity. Because how can you improve if you don't surface the things that aren't working well for us? It might happen. We kind of go into that celebration grid. You know, we just like, well, you got lucky, right? It might happen accidentally. Okay, so that's a Scrum framework in a single picture. The roles in Scrum, when they define Scrum, they wanted to kind of limit the number of roles that are participating. And so I'll walk through these real quick. Product owner is responsible for what to build. Scrum Master is how to build it together as a team. And the development team is how to build it. And so Scrum defined just the dev team. And that doesn't mean it's a team made up of developers. It's a team that is developing a product for a customer, so they can be made up of developers. It could be made up of developers and QA and BAs, maybe a report writer, maybe a DBA, maybe a financial analyst. Depending on the type of work, it's anybody that's required to deliver that work to our customer. Okay? So don't get hung up on development team. Often people do.
I like the term delivery team.
Yeah.
So, because of that reason.
What did you say, Aaron?
Delivery team.
Delivery team.
Yeah. And then all Scrum Masters must become Yoda and speak, and Yoda speak. Which, by the way, that would be really fun. I think.
I think,
Fun that would be.
I think I've heard
Thank you.
conflicting information about like the FA's role and how they play into retros or even, I mean, just different ceremonies and
Yeah.
things that are actually being done and stuff like that.
Let's put a pin in that. We're going to get to, I don't think we call out specifically, but let's talk about it when we get to some of these events. So going through each of the roles, detailing those, the product owner's responsibility is to describe the what, right? I don't think I shared the example, but my last company, I had a product owner who I respected. We worked well together. Came in one day in our sprint planning with some great screenshots and lots of detail about what he wanted us to build. It was helpful, although it put us down a path where we didn't have any creativity whatsoever. So here's what I want, exactly what I want, nothing but this, right? And it came to the question of how long will that take, which every product owner asks. How long is it going to take, team? And the team says, probably 3-4 sprints. We were doing 2-week sprints. It's like, my God, 6 to 8 weeks? Seriously? I mean, I sketched everything out for you, and this seems very simple. Of course, my go-to is, yeah, we'll just flip that 3rd and 4th switch in the back of the computer, and it's all done, right? He knew better, but the architect on the team said, went to the board and started drawing out, what if we built this, right? The product owner looked very skeptical, kind of folded his arms, started seeing some of the toxic that we talked about. It's like, sure, I mean, that's my utopia. That's really where I wanted to go, and what I showed you was kind of a stepping stone in my mind. How long is that one going to take? The architect said 2, maybe 3 days, right? He's like, days, seriously? But yeah, this is easy. Here's why. The foundation's already built. We just got to put this on top, whatever. It's long since I've been a developer, but there's some technical speak maybe in there or something, but 2 to 3 days. So naturally, the product owner was delighted. And so the point I'm making here is the product owner came in not only with the what, but the how, right? The team is responsible for the how. How do we approach the work? The product owner comes in and says, here's what we need. Here's the thing that needs to be built. Here's the function that needs to exist for our customer. Here's what it needs to do. Here's why that's important, right? So what and why? The team collaborates with the product owner, starts asking lots of questions, saying, well, what if we approach it this way? Could that be the key? Et cetera, et cetera. Come to a really great decision. The product owner learned in that scenario, I'm going to get a way better product if I just come in with what. This team is really talented. They'll talk about why and really come up with some cool of stuff, and for a lot less cost oftentimes. As developers or a development team, we don't want to embellish. We want to be done, move on. Be done, move on. And I think in our personal lives, we're that way as well. We want to, the honey-do list, I want to do this, get it done, do that, move on to the next thing, do as quick as possible, although I'm accused of not. So the product owner also closely collaborates with the Scrum team, with the Scrum master, prioritizes and groups backlog, accepts or rejects the work result, tracks and forecasts the progress of the project. Who's the voice of the customer? Is it the only voice of the customer? No, not necessarily. But they're responsible for that backlog and bringing the voice of the customer to the team. Think of it in terms of this. If I'm a product owner and I have 10 stakeholders I've got to work with. Well, if the 5 of us are stakeholders, I've got my perspective and it's the only one that really matters. You've got yours and it's the only one that really matters. So forth and so on, right? The product owner has a hard job to say, to stack rate where all, because it's really important to me and my team, and yours is equally as important to you and your team. The product owner has to step above that and say, well, how does that fit in the bigger picture? And how do I prioritize these amongst all those stakeholders? It's hard. So that's what we mean by voice of the customer, and sometimes the product owner brings in SMEs or FAs or other experts. Maybe it's a technical expert that needs to speak on that. Okay? Make sense? But again, the point we want to make at least is the product owner is responsible for these activities.
So, and the product owner could potentially be working with multiple Scrum teams, or they have one Scrum team that's dedicated to.
They're typically working with 1 to 2 teams. There's some that's probably working with 1, some probably working with 2. I don't know for sure, but ideally